Thanks, Dr. Kamal.
Thank you, everyone. We move to next session. I invite Dr. Ravish Raval, Dr. Abhimanyu Kothari, Dr. Mehul Patel as moderators, and Dr. Anup Gupta, Dr. Saurin Shah, and Dr. Chirayu Vyas as our specialists for chairing this session. Very interesting session on heart failure and devices, which is coming up. Over to chair, Dr. Anup, Dr. Chirayu, Dr. Saurin, Dr. Ravish, Dr. Kothari, and Dr. Mehul. What do you?
Thank you, Kamal, and two very good speaker, very excellent electrophysiologist, and the case which Kamal has put, I'm pretty sure both must be wondering like what to talk about in this treatment. Like 55-year-old man, class 2 symptoms, bifascicular block with the cardiac syncope, 4% of PVCs, small scar in cardiac MR. So Shomu is going to talk on AICD as a suitable therapy, and Neeraj is going to speak about DDDR. And I welcome my co-chairperson Saurin and Chirayu, and all the moderators Ravish, Abhimanyu, and Mehul. Over to Shomu.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Anup, for the introduction. Respected chairpersons, moderators, and dear friends, as well as my worthy opponent Neeraj. First of all, thanks to Dr. Kamal Sharma for having me here and discuss regarding this topic. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I would talk about AICD, why, and the reason that you should do is more about safety, and let us see the data that is available and based on which we take a decision. So here we have, as Dr. Anup Gupta described, a patient who has had a cardiac syncope over 4 years, has an old MI, a scar is there on MRI, the patient has conduction system disease, but also has VPCs, and there is no revascularizable vessel, it's a recanalized LAD. So what are the cardiac causes of syncope? If we were to see, the first comes is arrhythmia, second comes is obstruction, third is reflex, and the fourth is low cardiac output. So in this patient, what is likely is ventricular tachycardia, which is likely to be scar with an old MI. Given that there are VPCs are present, there is no clarity on the type of VPCs, whether there are NSVTs, couplets, triplets. The second possibility can be an AV block, given that there is a trifascicular block, or the third possibility is a hypotension or a reflex, which can be medicine related also. So when you think of a cardiac cause of syncope with severe structural heart disease, the prior history of myocardial infarction and clinical symptoms like syncope during exertion or when supine, palpitations at the time of syncope, patient is having non-sustained ventricular tachycardia or bifascicular or interventricular conduction defect with a QRS duration of more than 120 milliseconds is very important. So for this patient, I would definitely want to have three things in mind. Association with palpitation, if it is there, it would consider that it is a cause, that is ventricular tachycardia or arrhythmia is a cause, which includes atrial tachycardia also. Second is presence of sweating, nausea, vomiting, breathlessness. Generally, AV block, sudden AV block do not present with this. But if you have ventricular tachycardia or atrial tachycardia or even positional or low blood pressure, you would have sweating, nausea, vomiting because of low blood pressure. And that history helps. What is the ectopic? So ectopics, if there are R-on-T VPCs, there are couplets or triplets, there are multiform or bigeminal premature beats, they are associated with a higher risk, 3 times higher risk of sudden cardiac arrest, and the death from any cause may be twice that without such complex beats. You can have many parameters on the ECG itself, which includes QTC, early repolarization, heart rate variability, QT dimes, T-wave alternates, etc. But ideally for this patient, the next test that I would like to do is an EP study. Why? Because I want to see the HV interval and for the VT induction to be seen. This is to differentiate whether the patient A has any abnormality related to the HV interval or the patient has an inducible VT. The other investigations that I can do is ECG parameters for other like QT alternates, but their specificity is very low. Implantable loop recorder can be implanted because already the ELR has been done, but the possibility that the next episode may be fatal is there, and therefore we should be a little bit cautious. You can do an ambulatory BP or a HUT. What is the importance of a EP study? The HV interval, if it is more than 55 milliseconds, suggests the chances that the patient will go into a complete AV block further. And if there is an induced monomorphic VT, the chances that the patient has had a problem with a VT, the symptoms due to a VT is more likely. So if we don't have a EP study, what is the review of literature that we have? The review of literature says that syncope from arrhythmia most commonly results from ventricular tachycardia, which accounts for nearly 11% of all cases of syncope, while bradyarrhythmias, which include sinus bradycardia as well as AV block, include 10% only. So ventricular tachycardia is more frequent in patients with structural heart disease, especially with a low ejection fraction and a scar. So that's very important history. Even if you have a LAHP, RBBP and AV block, the chances of needing a pacemaker is to the tune of 2 to 4% only. So syncope or pre-syncope, if it is there is 2 times risk, while QRS width, renal failure and HV interval, which is high, add to the risk. So for this patient, what we have is a old MI and scar, chances of VT is higher. RBBP, LAHB and prolonged PR not necessarily means AV block. It can be a VT also, but AV block can be treated by an AICD also. So overall chances of VT is higher. So is it a pacemaker or an AICD? What does the AICD do? It treats both the tachycardia as well as the bradycardia, and it, on top of it, it prevents sudden cardiac death related to tachycardia. The cost is, however, a deterrent. The dual chamber AICD will cost around 3.5 to 4.5. Implantation procedure is the same. Shocks that can come from an AICD is the only side effect of an AICD, but which is much better than having a sudden cardiac arrest. While pacemaker treats only brady, it cannot prevent sudden cardiac death related to tachycardia. Cost of dual chamber will vary from 1.5 to 2 lakhs, and the implantation procedure is the same, though the size may be different. So overall, in this patient, it's safer to put an AICD in the absence of investigations like EP study, data on VPCs or an ILR, because an AICD will treat both the tachycardia as well as bradycardia, while pacemaker will only treat bradycardia. Problem is, if you put in a pacemaker, the next episode of a VT can be sudden cardiac death, which cannot be treated by a pacemaker. So let us see this very example that we faced. A 54-year-old lady with anterior wall MI 6 months back, obese, diabetic, PTCA to LAD done, ejection fraction was 40%. She had giddiness pre-syncope after 3 months. She had a documented sinus bradycardia and short AF. VT was not noted during the Holter monitoring. So she was giving a pacemaker thinking of sick sinus, tachybrady syndrome, was on beta blockers, amiodarone and discharged. And on follow-up, 1 month, everything was okay. But at 3 months, she was functional class 1, but had a sudden cardiac arrest. And do you know what the sudden cardiac arrest was due to? The atrial rate, if you see here, is lesser than the ventricular rate, and it was classically a VT that the patient had when the patient died. We retrieved the data, and you can see that there is a ventricular tachycardia which caused the death. So could we have helped her in any way? Already PTCA was done, anti-anginals were on, beta blockers were on. She was given a pacemaker for bradycardia. Still she died, and she died because of a ventricular arrhythmia. What could have been done? Was it an AICD? Definitely yes. So concluding, evaluating the patient thoroughly prior to device implantation is a must. If you don't have proper data, you should always do an EP study where the baseline ECG has some changes like RBBP, LHB and syncope with no documented arrhythmia at the time of episode. The cost of EP study is not much. It's just 30,000 to 35,000. The cost of a 30-day ILR is the same nearly, and the cost of an ILR is 3.5 lakhs or more. So if EP study is not possible, be safe. For this patient, you need to say that it's safer, though costlier. You need to put an AICD rather than only a pacemaker in this patient. And you may even want to upgrade it to CRT later on in 1 day. Thank you so much.
Neeraj, you can start your presentation now.
Okay. Is my screen visible to all of you? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Kamal, for giving me this opportunity This is second consecutive year in CardioCon, and it is getting better and better every time. So as case history is already narrated, I'll not go in detail. And Dr. Shomu has put his point forwards for the ICD implantation in this case. This is an ECG of exactly same patient that we treated 1 year back. And decision making in such patients are not relatively straightforward. What is important in clinical decision making is striking the right balance between what is called as over-treatment and what is called as under-treatment. As the clinical data point increases in patients' clinical history, physicians tend to over-treat such patients. And in these patients, we should understand what is clinically important in causing the patient's symptom. At the same time, we have to ignore the background noise. In this patient, I think the most important relevant history is cardiac syncope that rules out your reflex or orthostatic hypotension related syncope, and ECG finding of right bundle, left anterior fascicular block, and first degree AV block. What should be considered as noise in the clinical data point is PVC burden of 4%. Let me tell you, it was observed over a period of 14 days of ILR, an ejection fraction of 42%, and a small apical scar mentioned in cardiac MRI. How do we know what is more relevant and what is background noise in clinical history? As our experience increases, we have a lot of anecdotal evidences to tell, but anecdotal evidence is the weakest evidence. I know there is no data to support ICD in this case, and Dr. Shomu will come up with an anecdotal evidence. So let us come back to ECG, right bundle branch block, left anterior fascicular block, and PR interval of 220 milliseconds. There are issues of conduction problem at multiple levels. And when we, this is already described by Dr. Shomu, the trifascicular system, his Purkinje system, is important for rapid and synchronous ventricular contraction, and which can be easily measured by what we call HV interval in his bundle electrogram during EP study. HV interval will remain normal as long as even a single fascicle is functioning normally. Usually HV interval prolongation means there is a conduction system problem. When we look at causes of syncope in bifascicular block, apart from neurally mediated mechanisms, most common mechanism in this patient was cardiac. This is a small study published in Europes 2002, but is very insightful study. 45% had a cardiac syncope. Out of this 25 patients, AV block were observed in 20, 6 sinus syndrome in 2, VT in 1, and aortic stenosis in 2. That means the majority of patients had a AV block as a cause of syncope. HV interval measurement can probably tell you the incidence and progression to higher degree of AV block, but not necessarily it tells you the mechanism of syncope. HV interval more than 70 millisecond and HV interval more than 100 millisecond is considered as indication of pacemaker in this patient because of the degree of progression to AV block is higher, not because the cause of syncope was AV block. However, EP study has a non-specific outcomes, and it is seen that in patient who had a bifascicular block or bundle branch block who had negative EP study, these patients were studied by ILR or implantable cardiac monitor by Brignol and published in 2001 Circulation. Out of 52 patients implanted ILR having syncope, bifascicular block, and negative EP study, again, 42% had syncope. The major reason for that was AV block, asystole, and sinoatrial block. 6% patient developed stable AV block, and that warranted pacemaker, and 4% had a pre-syncope which was because of AV block in detected by ILR. That is the reason why guidelines have included implantable cardiac monitor as an ideal strategy for the patient that is given to us. It is a class 2A indication, though level of evidence is C. EP study has a class 2B indication for evaluation of this patient. But the problem is with implantable loop recorder or implantable cardiac monitor is that in our patient, it is not very cost effective. Its cost is more than a pacemaker therapy. So sometimes, though ILR is ideal to evaluate these patients, it is not practical. And that is why pacemaker implantation can be a reasonable strategy in this patient, which also gives a diagnostic information. So this has been supported by some of the clinical studies. This is a randomized trial of strategies of empirical pacemaker implantation in patients with bifascicular block and syncope. 56 patients underwent pacemaker and 59 patients underwent ILR. Pacemaker effectively prevented the primary outcomes, and 59% of patients who underwent ILR crossed over to pacemaker because the indication of pacemaker implantation emerged in follow-up. Proportion of syncope was similar in both groups because of the higher incidence of neural mediated and orthostatic hypotension. This is another study where 27 patients with bifascicular block and syncope were studied prospectively. All patients received a VVI with bradycardia detecting ability. And during a median follow-up of 60 months, a bradycardia event was detected in 52% of cases. All of them, almost all of them, 13 out of 14, had a documented high degree AV block on ECG. The median time between the syncopal episodes and the first pacemaker detected bradycardia event was 5 months. And after an additional median time of 6 months, high degree AV block was documented on ECG. This is a study conducted in structural normal heart, where again, empirical pacemaker implantation in patients with bifascicular block and syncope had shown to reduce the time to event curves as compared to patient who undergoes decision based on EP study. If EP study comes positive, patient goes with pacemaker. If it comes negative, patient goes with implantable cardiac monitor. Out of those patients, again, implantable cardiac monitor patient, again, majority of those patients received a pacemaker implant. There is another study. So there are a lot of evidences of this strategy of empirical pacemaker in this patient subgroup. This PRESS study, again, checked the DDD with a lower rate of 60 with a backup DDI pacing at rate of 30 beat per minute. And the endpoint was syncope, symptomatic pre-syncopal episode, and symptomatic episode associated with intermittent AV block, which was significantly reduced in patients who underwent empirical pacemaker implantation compared to backup DDI pacing. There is no recommendation.
The time is up.
There is no okay, that is the last slide. There's no recommendation of ICD in this subgroup of patients. When you have a 42% of ejection fraction, small apical scar, and no documented VT on ECG or implantable cardiac monitor, there is no evidence of ICD. This is a patient which I described. Patient had a alternating bundle branch block, RBBB, LAFB, RBB, LPFB, and then patient came with AV block. Now, 40% of ejection fraction was not important in this patient to understand the cause of syncope, but what it was important to understand which mode of therapy has to be chosen. So this patient underwent physiological pacing to prevent deterioration of pacemaker-related LV dysfunction. So in conclusion, bifascicular block with first degree AV block in background of history of cardiac syncope, empirical pacemaker therapy is a reasonable strategy because very high probability of AV block as a mechanism of syncope. EP study findings are non-specific. Negative EP study does not rule out AV block as a cause of syncope. Implantable cardiac monitor is an ideal thing to do, but it is expensive for most of our patients, more expensive than a pacemaker. And significant number of patients with ICM again receives a pacemaker. So it does not prevent syncope. So risk of ventricular arrhythmia is not determined by underlying bifascicular block. It is determined by LV dysfunction and amount of scar. EF of 42% and small apical scar does not warrant ICD implantation. Thank you very much. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Somu and Neeraj. Wonderful talks. I'll invite the moderators and the co-chair to make the comment. We have 3 minutes for discussion. So I want to wind up the session in 3 minutes.
Dr. Saureen, Dr. Chirayu, Dr. Ravish.
Yeah, I'll just, Dr. Shomu here. I'll just want to put that one thing, that whatever Dr. Neeraj has said is for patients who have no structural heart disease. So all these in normal echo patients, that's very important to know. If you overlap, so if you consider a structural heart disease, the outcomes are different. The VT is a primary cause. As I told you, 11% have VT, only 10% have bradycardic. So patients with no structural heart disease, you have AV block as more common, but patients with structural heart disease, lower ejection fraction, VT should be considered higher than AV block.
I would like to make a comment. So very rightly said by Dr. Shomu that when patient has a structural heart disease and bifascicular block, the most common reason for syncope in this patient was found to be ventricular arrhythmias. These were studies where long-term monitoring was not done, and structural heart disease was significantly severe in all these patients in terms of heart failure status as well as LV dysfunction. The studies that I've quoted, out of those, 2 studies were done in a structurally normal heart, but majority had a mean LV ejection fraction of around 40 to 40%. So in this patient, I don't think 40% of ejection fraction with small apical scar can be the reason of bifascicular block. This is an associated conduction problem rather than a problem arising from a severely structural heart disease. Suppose patient has 25% of EF, my strategy would have been entirely different. But in this case, there is a pacemaker to the way to go.
Dr. Neeraj, that was the reason I deliberately chose all figures, not going to either of the side. If I was to mention scar of, say, large territory, then it would be straight away ICD. If I was to mention, complete heart block, again, things would go a different way. If I was to mention EF less than 35, again, things would have gone the other way. So all the cases don't fit a clinical picture. We really wanted a couple of insights from both of you, and of course the chair and the speakers and the moderators, as to when you get these kind of cases, there is a need at least not to be judgmental and choose between the two. Maybe you need a EP guy's opinion at least to evaluate whether you need either of the two, or further workup in form of EP assessment as an invasive EP study. Chairpersons, moderators, please.
Yeah, but again, Kamal, the question is like, the same thing. Somu, suppose we subject this patient for EP and EP is negative for inducible VT. So would you like to change your decision, putting a dual chamber or a physiological pacing, or just you go ahead with the ICD only?
I'll be more confident in telling the patient that VT is unlikely. However, it doesn't rule out a VT. Again, I'm saying.
Exactly. So exactly, the role of EP study doesn't stand here in that case.
The role of EP study in structural heart, normal heart is very less, but in structurally abnormal heart, it is much better than a structural normal heart.
No, I agree with you, but your decision is not going to change. Suppose we don't induce VT on the given day, so you're not.
But if we induce VT, that is the question.
Yes, then it's a straightforward. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Now the other thing, so would you like to give single chamber? Why you want to give a dual chamber ICD in this patient?
The patient has a long PR. So as I said, either a physiological dual chamber AICD or a CRT. I've mentioned the last word.
So, but how you are going to do a physiological ICD? How you are going to do? You are going to put 3 leads in that case, right?
Yes. So that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Any comments, Chirayu or Sharon?
Shomu is saying the thing that ultimately the 3-lead device will solve the purpose finally. That is the thing. The physiological modality.
Not now. Means as I said, see, if you overtreat, as Neeraj pointed out, you cannot overtreat the patient.
Dr. Shomu,
to discuss.
Just one small question. If at all you're inducing a VT, Why not considering regarding a scar VT ablation as a prior strategy?
Yeah, see, again, do you think after I ablate the scar, the patient will never have a VT again? So VT ablation is not 100%. And later on, there may be another VT that may come up.
When the point when we are relying on the inducibility of VT to give this indication, then why not even post ablation just rely on the inducibility?
True, but that's what I'm saying. When you have had a syncope, you don't know whether it was directly VF. You may have ablated a VT, but you are not going to ablate a VF, right?
Anyway, yeah, implanted loop recorder has to be the answer for that, right?
Yeah. I would like to make a small comment. Actually, it is right when we choose a pacemaker therapy over implantable cardiac monitor, we take cost into account. At the same time, deciding of ICD against a pacemaker, we take a safety into account. So these clinical decision makings are really complex. It has to be shared decision making with patient and patient's family. We have to understand that sometimes in making decisions, sometimes we undertreat patient and sometimes we overtreat patient.
It's also important, I suppose, that to inform the patient, and as Neeraj said, that when you put in a pacemaker, suppose it is a VT and it's a monomorphic VT, it will be recorded in the pacemaker anyway, right? ILR is not required for monitoring the VT. The pacemaker can itself record a VT, and once you have recorded a VT, then you can still discuss for upgrading it to a AICD if required. The only problem is, can it be the last event for the patient? So when you discuss, you need to discuss during implantation. That's very important.
Yes, is that with one patient, if Shomu has shown a patient already which is having a pacemaker and they died of a VT, and we get so much we get biased automatically. I see such a patient and always inform the patient of such a risk and do it later accordingly.
Bias decisions will occur. It depends on the implanter. It depends on the patient, and the
informed decision of the patient depending on you. Yes.
So the patient, some people say that give me the least amount. I want to get it done in the least amount, and some would say, okay, after pacemaker, would I need to upgrade? After pacemaker, can it be anything else? So then you have to definitely inform them and say, this is what it is, and this is possibly you may need to upgrade, and this is an option available.
I think no more further comments. I think we can close the session here. Thank you very much, Shomu and Neeraj. Wonderful talks.
Thank you.
The organizer.